Thank you again for joining us. This is Dr. Andy Hughes with another episode of Unlearning Business as Usual. And today's guest is Dr. Daniel Whitenack, CEO of Prediction Guard, a company that helps organizations use AI safely and responsibly. Daniel, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
You spoke earlier today and did an awesome job.
It's a lot of fun.
Right, now you have groupies, people are following you. It's great. And before we kind of jump in to this, just for our listeners, those that are tuning into this particular episode, can you give me a 30-second pitch? What does Prediction Guard do, and why should business leaders care?
Yeah, so Prediction Guard really allows you to create an AI system that you control. We call that a sovereign AI system.
Okay.
And when you control something, then you can govern it. So this is an AI system that you control, and then you can place your governance on top of it. So for companies that are operating in regulated industries or with security concerns, or those that want to be responsible with how they use AI, we allow them to create these AI systems. We allow their security teams to implement policies, security policies on top of those AI systems, and plug those into their existing security infrastructure.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Wow, thank you for that. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into our first question. One thing I hear constantly from executives is this: how do I know if AI is giving me the right answer, right? Hallucinations, right? We've all heard the horror stories, chatbots make things up, AI giving confidently wrong information. So it's not just wrong information, they believe it's right. Right? It's so convincing, right? That's a scary proposition. When you're making, especially when you're making business decisions, how should leaders think about trust and accuracy when it comes to AI? And then secondly, what questions should they be asking their tech teams or vendors like you before they deploy AI in their business?
Yeah, I often frame this in terms of maybe something that people do have experience with, which is, let's say, bringing in an intern into your company, right? So like, if you bring an intern into your company, like, how do you trust that intern? Now, sometimes interns produce no value, and that's probably more so due to how the company sets them up for success than the intern themselves. But let's say that there's a chance of success here. How do you develop trust of that intern? And the reality is there has to be some sort of checks and balances in place, and you have to feed that intern with the right context and give them the right limited set of access, right? So you would not just immediately give the intern access to everything in your Google Drive or in your SharePoint and then say, develop our board deck for next board meeting, right? That's not a reasonable set of expectations, and it's not a reasonable set of access, and you should mistrust that intern in terms of that task. And so I think some of this is, if we bring it over to the AI side, what do you give access, what do you allow the AI to access? And is the right information in there in a way that's curated properly? And often how we put it is, if you cannot cite within your organization from the data that you trust within your organization and consider ground truth, if you cannot have a citation that supports the AI output, then that actually is a security incident, right? So regardless of what the AI outputs, if you're not replying in context, that should be considered a security incident. And so coming from that standpoint, that's, I think, how you build trust over time, is actually creating those pointers to what you consider ground truth, what you consider trust, and having the ability to audit whether that's happening or not. That's an important piece of it.
So do you recommend, as a follow-up to that question, when those reference points are created, to go ahead and check those reference points? It's not enough just to create the citations, right?
Yeah, and I would say in the same way that you can confuse an intern, you can confuse these systems, and it's not really against these systems necessarily that that's the case. So for example, if I give an intern documentation for my product from this year and documentation from my product from that year, and those conflict because the product was different, and I expect them to give me the proper answer and assume they know which version I'm talking about, then they're gonna fail. And that's the same way with an AI system. If I just expose all of my data to an AI system and I have conflicting information in there, AI doesn't solve your data conflicts in your organization, right? Now, maybe it would say, I'm confused and I'm seeing multiple things, and maybe that's how it should respond in kind of an aligned way, but it's not a reasonable expectation for us to expect that AI would solve that problem for us in the absence of an effort to do it on our behalf. So
that's awesome. Thank you for that clarity too. Question 3 is about the human element. Let's talk about people for a second. We talk a lot about AI and bots, but let's talk about people. A lot of employees are worried about AI eliminating their jobs. Leaders are worried about how to upskill those employees with AI tools and understandings, right? So there's this tension, right, between AI will make us more efficient and AI will replace us, right? Terminator 2. What's the mindset shift leaders need to make when it comes to integrating AI with their teams? And secondly, how do we unlearn the idea that AI is either a magic solution or job killer and start thinking about it more realistically?
I would say this kind of gets back a little bit to an earlier point I made, a misconception that things happen kind of top down.
Yeah.
If you're in an organization and you're wanting your workforce to be more efficient, and you just say, well, me as a leader, use AI, or I'm going to replace you with AI, or whatever that is, neither one of those are going to work out. And I think it starts with that leader saying, like, how am I modifying my workflows as a leader with these tools to be a better leader? And when I'm in my one-on-one with my direct report and they ask, like, hey, I was wondering about this, I literally show them, hey, here's what I've been doing with my AI workflows. Let's try to answer that question that way. And they see you doing that as a part of your workflow. That's how things will actually be adopted and trickle down. So I think from the leadership standpoint, that's something that people can really do. I think in terms of these things around replacing human workforce or jobs, there's no doubt that jobs that we did do will no longer exist in this new world of AI, and that is a reality that we're all going to have to come to terms with, and there's some hard things societally that will happen because of that. However, I made this point in my talk, jobs that will be highly affected by AI, for example, software engineering, will have a different workflow and there will be different types of roles, but there's always an infinite roadmap in software engineering. It's not like as soon as you're able to move faster, you necessarily need less engineers because you always have more to do, right? And there's all sorts of nuances around that, but I think that it's important that we recognize some roles and jobs will cease to exist. Some will be highly modified, but the leaders I think that are going to lead ahead are the ones that are themselves reevaluating how their own leadership role changes as they use AI, and that's going to build their own intuition about how to bring their team forward with them.
Awesome. Thank you. And so our next question, what's next, right? We're living in a moment where AI is evolving faster than most of us can really keep up. Every single speaker referenced that, right? The speed is just unlike anything we've ever seen as far as the adoption and development. What worked 6 months ago may not work tomorrow, or there may be a new solution. Ethan Malik said, right, we're using the worst AI model ever today that we're gonna ever use. So thinking about that, what's one thing about AI you think business leaders should be paying attention to right now, this very moment, something that's not getting enough airtime, but will matter in the next year or two?
Yeah, good question. And I think like one note on that, the sort of worst AI ever is now is, I would say, if no other model is released ever, no advancement is made. We already have enough AI to transform all of our business processes in innumerable ways. And so we're no longer in the wait and see mode. One thing that I would say is kind of maybe a overlooked thing within AI is a lot of the focus of AI is around like what chat interface are you interacting with what model? So is it Claude, or is it Copilot, or is it, you know, Grok or whatever? And I would say that like chat interface is the least important interface that businesses use to interact with AI. The real like business value is when you tie AI into some of the business processes that you're already using. So when AI is able to process emails out of email and maybe, you know, generate those emails, that's a business process you're already using, right? When healthcare scenarios, when they receive doctor transcriptions and those are automatically fed into something that can help with the processing of those, that is very different than taking a transcript and finding your favorite chat thing and uploading it with the file upload button. We have to get away from this mindset of like what chat interface are we using and think about how AI is embedded in our actual kind of business workflows, I would say.
That's awesome. So just in closing, I can't thank you enough for not only your presentation earlier, but taking the time today to engage.
Fun.
This is great.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to unlearn business as usual with great leaders like you. Thank you again, Daniel, for joining us.
Appreciate it.